so let's now go to the different parts of the human male reproductive system. Kaya tulad ng dati, bibigyan ko kayo ng acronyms. So we are going to be talking about the 4 important parts. So we're going to talk about the testes, we're going to talk about the ducts, we're going to talk about the other parts. So para hindi nyo malimutan ito, this would be the testes. That's where the sperm cells will be produced. Just remember SSSL. Okay, so hindi na malilimutan yan na these are the parts that are important for the testes, SSSL. So you have the seminiferous tubules, you have the Sertoli cells, you have the scrotum, and you have the Leydig cells. So that will be the important things you have to remember related with the testes. Pagdating naman sa ducts, this will be the passageways by which the different fluids produced in the male reproductive system will pass through. Ang kailangan yung tandaan ay EEVUU. So, EVU. EVU. EEVUU. So, what are the ducts? These are the following. Epididymis, yan, ejaculatory duct, vas deferens, urinary bladder, and then urethra. Now, of course, I understand na parang maraming kailangan tandaan. So I understand that, but take note when you familiarize with yourselves with this, pag lagi ninyong binabasa, mamememorize nyo rin ito eventually. And I also arrange it in a way para madaling tandaan. SSSL, EEVUU. Okay, let's go to the next one, the accessory glands. These are the glands that will be producing fluids that will add up so that the sperm cell will be nourished, especially needed when they're going into sexual reproduction. SSBP naman ito. So ano kailangan natin tandaan dito? Then the semen, the seminal vesicle, the prostrate gland, and also the bulbourethral gland. Okay, so at this point in time, so just absorb everything na muna, isa-isay natin i-memorize ang part na yan. And finally, the last thing that you have to take note, the penis, ito yung nawawalang part doon kay Adam, this would be GPS lang ang kailangan yung tandaan. So this will be the glands, this will be the prepuce, and also the spongy erectile tissue. Okay, can I see a thumbs up muna if nakikita nyo na yung mga kailangan ninyong i-take note? Okay, very good. So, let me just get a few more slides before we totally end for today. Yeah. So, this is what the human male reproductive system look like if hatiin nyo sa kalahati yung model. So this is what it looks like. So a question, can you identify the following? Ang dami-dami dyan The answer is yes! Kaya nyong i-memorize iyan. Okay, so I'll help you do that as well. Okay, so let's start with the testes, SSSL, which is the seminiferous tubule, the Sertoli cell, the scrotum, and also the Leydig cells. So wala tayong ibang focus ng ating attention other than the testes muna para hindi masyadong mahirap. Okay, let's look at this. This is what the testes look like if you remove all of if you look only at the internal structure, and you will see the important things. So this will be the structure, the testicle, that will produce the sperm cell. This would be the epididymis, wherein the sperm cell will go through. It's like a storage, and then it's also a duct. And then you have the vas deferens, another set of ducts. And then also you have the scrotum, which would be the skin, a sac-like structure that will help in protection of the testes to produce the sperm cell. Okay, isa-isayin natin siya. So the first one is the scrotum. Itong first part na ito, this is where the temperature is cool enough for the testes to produce viable sperm. Interestingly enough, the sperm cell cannot survive inside the body at body temperature. Hindi niya kayang mag-survive at 37 degrees Celsius. So with that, in order for the sperm cell to become viable or to stay alive, para ito ay eventually makapunta sa female reproductive system and fertilize the egg cell, kinakailangan that it will be outside of the male human body. That is why there is what we call as a sac-like structure called the scrotum, and because it is outside of the body, it is relatively lower in temperature, and that temperature will simply be enough para maging viable ang sperm cell. And I watched a movie na kung saan yung couple doon ay hindi makaanak-anak, and it was discovered that probably ay medyo mataas ang temperature siguro, kaya one of the things na pinagawa ng doktor ay nilagyan ng yelo. Nilagyan ng yelo doon sa groin area in order to decrease the temperature and probably make the sperm cell more viable. So that could be one of the ways to probably cure infertility, among other things. So it protects the testicles, and that will be the important things that you have to take note of. Okay, can you see a thumbs up if you're able to understand that portion so far? Okay, just 2 more slides and I'll just end with the testes. Okay, this is the seminiferous tubule. So if you're going to cut through the testes, you will see a lot of coils, and these coils that are going round and round and round are actually the area where the sperm cells are produced. So this is a very, very, very long coil of tubes yan. So what is the seminiferous tubule? Coil, connective tissue, site of sperm production, and this is what it looks like. Cross-section siya. So marami diyang mga coils. So you don't have to memorize yung mga iba't ibang parts na yan. You just have to remember, this is the seminiferous tubule. Under the actual microscope, this is what the seminiferous tubules will look like. Okay? So ang dami niyang mga coils talaga. And then, this is what we call as the Sertoli cell. So what we do. So the testis is here, i-cut yung testis. So you now see the seminiferous tubule. Get one seminiferous tubule yan, and this is what it looks like, itong tube na yan. Now if you're going to cut open the tubule, then you will see the Sertoli cells. So hi, Sertoli cells. The Sertoli cells are actually here. Kung ito yung pinaka-edge ng tubule, which is the seminiferous tubule, ito naman yung hollow inside, so hollow tube siya. Ito ay space in between. In between the edge and the hollow of the tube, andyan ang mga Sertoli cells. And interestingly enough, ang Sertoli cells ay, ito ang kanyang trabaho. It would be directly controlling the environment of the seminiferous tubules. In other words, it provides nutrition to the sperm cells. So without the Sertoli cells, the sperm cell will not survive. So kailangan nila ito in order to develop and eventually become a sperm cell. Kasi nagsimula siya sa isang cell, and then magkakaroon ng division, magkakaroon ng maturation, eventually producing the flagella, eventually becoming the sperm cell. So Sertoli cells are actually very important at this point in time. Ito, cut away uli ng Sertoli ng seminiferous tubule. So this would be the edge of the tubule itself. Here are the Sertoli cells. Ito, it is bounding the spermatogonium here, and then eventually the sperm cells, the mature sperm cells will be here, and then it will be released in the lumen. Pag sinabing lumen, butas. It's the hollow of the seminiferous tubules yan. So that's the major job of the Sertoli cells, assisting, giving nutrition, the development of the spermatogonium to become a sperm cell. Okay, I have one more slide na lamang. Now this is one Sertoli, this is one seminiferous tubule, and then this would be spaces in between. So ang daming seminiferous tubule na cut away. Notice, merong Leydig cells. So anong trabaho ng Leydig cells? The job of the Leydig cells would be to produce the reproductive hormone. Question, ano ang reproductive hormone? Ano ang hormone ng males? Testosterone. Another name or synonym for the testosterone is also what we call as androgen. Let me type that down. Androgen. So testosterone or androgen is actually the important hormone that will help in the production of the sperm cell. So primary source of testosterone or androgen in males. Without the presence of testosterone, then male characteristics will not develop. So ang baby ay magiging female if not for the presence of that testosterone. Okay, so here would be the seminiferous tubules. Ayan yung seminiferous tubules. And notice that the seminiferous tubules would be containing cells. So the question is, where does the actual sperm cell comes from? It comes from a cell that is called spermatogonium. Actually, we'll be talking about that in the next coming module natin in LT2. We'll be talking about Genesis and also oogenesis, we'll be talking about how the sperm cells are formed. But suffice to say right now, it comes from a cell called spermatogonium, and the spermatogonium is this. Yan. So ito ay diploid cell. It will undergo meiosis to become haploid cells, eventually producing or maturing or differentiating via the use of the Sertoli cells. So meron mga chemicals na i-release yung Sertoli cells para mag-start mag-mature yung sperm cells na yan, producing the head, the midpiece, and also the tail. Oh, that's a very good question. Can I see a thumbs up if you're able to understand where it comes from and how it actually develops? Okay, very good. Medyo advanced ng konti, but it suffice to answer the question. Alright, so let's continue on. Since alam na natin ngayon ang testis, the different parts of that, and we also took note of the important cells that are there, Sertoli, Leydig cells, and also the what do you call this? The sperm cells are being produced there. Let's now go to, yan, ito pinapakita lamang yung kanyang development in this, the Sertoli cells. And you can see that the Leydig cells are actually outside of the membrane of the seminiferous tubule. So here are the Leydig cells in the tinatawag na interstitial tissues. All right. Okay, so let's try to see this. Ano uli ang sac here that you can see over here? It is called the scrotum. And of course, the oval-shaped structure here is what we call as the testis, and that would be containing the seminiferous tubules, the Sertoli cells, and the Leydig cells. Okay, so marami na tayo natutunan. Now, let's continue with this one. The next set that you have to remember would be the EEVUU, the EVU, and that will be all the ducts that we have, we need to discuss. So let me just ask, have I discussed yung ducts or not yet? Itong mga ducts na to? Have I start discussing about this? Can I see a thumbs react? No, not yet. Okay, great. So let's now continue with this. Ngayon, okay, so we're gonna be looking at the passageway, and these are actually very important because if there will be problems in the structure of this particular, what they call this particular passageways, for example, may blockage or they are malfunctional, that means that the sperm cell will not be able to get out of the male reproductive system and will not be able to go to the egg cell in order to form a pregnancy or to form fertilization. In addition to that, hindi lamang siya passageway, some of the ducts we're gonna be talking about also releases what we call as specific fluids that will be very important for the development and the nutrition of the sperm cell. So you have to remember two things for the ducts. Number one, passageway. If there will be problem, blockage, the male will become infertile, unable to effect a pregnancy or to produce, to let the sperm cell get out and then effect a fertilization. And then the other one would be the production of fluids that are important for the development of the semen or the sperm cell. Again, if there will be problems with the ducts, particularly the production of the fluids, then the sperm cells will be not viable, making the male infertile as well. Starting with the first one, epididymis. So the epididymis is actually lying near or lying on top of the testis. So if you will be looking at the oval-shaped testis, immediately on top of that you will find the epididymis. Now the epididymis would be very important because this is where the storage of sperm happens, and then also further development of the sperm cells occur as well. So you have to remember two things for the epididymis. Number one is storage of the sperm cell after being released from the seminiferous tubules. Secondly naman would be the continual development of the sperm cell. So what will happen if the epididymis would be malfunctional? No storage of the sperm cell. The sperm cell will not be able to pass through, and then the sperm cell will remain immature because no development will happen. That's why the epididymis is actually very, very important. Okay, can you give me a clap reaction if you understood the part about the epididymis? Okay, very good. So very important. So take note that we are talking about what would be the whys. What will happen? How about the vas deferens? So take a look at this one. This is the oval-shaped testis. This is the structure right on top of the testis, epididymis. And then connected to the epididymis, a very long tube, and that will be what we call as the vas deferens. Okay? So siguro i-connect nyo sa vast. Very vast. So it's actually a very long tube. Just remember vas deferens. So what's the function of this? It is a muscular tube. Of course, it is the passageway for the sperm cells, and then it will be looping around the bladder on top of it. And then particularly during ejaculation, sperm cells are propelled through this muscular tube. So in other words, it is a tube where the sperm cells are being propelled, have to go through. It is a passageway that it needs to go through in order for the sperm cells to get out of the male reproductive system. So again, the question, what will happen if the vas deferens would be malfunctional, or there will be problems, or there will be blockage? As already discussed in the epididymis, although there will be some difference, the passageway will be blocked or malfunctional, then the sperm cells will not be able to pass through, making the individual or the male infertile, because he might be able to produce 300 million sperm cells in the testes, but it doesn't go out. So it will not be able to affect a pregnancy. Therefore, the male will considered be infertile. So probably there will be a need for surgery. Probably there will be need for what do you call that? For surgical interventions in order to effect a cure for this kind of problems in terms of infertility, blockages in the vas deferens. Okay, can I see a celebration reaction if you understood that part? Okay, so we're talking about not only the definition, we're also talking about what will happen if it's malfunctional. So very important. So we're done with E, epididymis. We're done with V, vas deferens. And then we continue with, so another thing pala, it is joining the seminal vesicle here and ejaculatory duct. We'll talk about that in a little while. Let's talk about the ejaculatory duct naman. So take note, again, this is the oval-shaped testis. The epididymis is right on top of the testis. We have the vas deferens looping around the urinary bladder, and then immediately connected to the urinary bladder is the ejaculatory duct. Now, please do take note, there are 4 important structures in relation or positionally related with the urinary bladder. You will see right on the back, we'll discuss it a little bit later. So seminal vesicle yan. Yung ejaculatory duct will be a little bit on the bottom, but not exactly on the bottom. So seminal vesicle, ejaculatory duct, but right beneath the urinary bladder is the prostate gland, and right beneath the prostate gland over here, that's the Cowper's gland, or what, the bulbourethral gland. So it is very important that you know positionally relative to the urinary bladder, so that when you see pictures, you will be able to identify those particular parts. So again, immediately at the back, seminal vesicle. On the bottom, not really on the bottom, that's the ejaculatory duct connected with the vas deferens. Immediately under the blood, the urinary bladder is the prostate gland, and under the prostate gland would be the Cowper's gland or bulbourethral gland. Okay, so since we now know the positions, what's the function of the ejaculatory duct? Now you can see here that it joins the seminal vesicle. So the ejaculatory duct will be joining a lot. So the vas deferens is connected to that. The seminal vesicle will be connected to that. And then it receives secretions from other glands and sends its way through the urethra. So marami itong mga nire-receive na mga fluids that will allow the sperm cells to later be given nutrition a little bit later. Okay? So that will be called the ejaculatory duct. So we're done with epididymis. We're done with the vas deferens. We're done with the other E, ejaculatory duct. So it receives the fluids coming from the other glands. The next one we have to take note is the urinary bladder and the urethra. Urinary bladder, very familiar. So the urine will be collected there. Dito lamang siya. And the urethra is the passageway wherein not only the sperm cells will be able to get out of the male reproductive system, but interestingly enough, for the male, the urethra is connected also with the urinary bladder. So you will see here the urinary bladder containing urine. It is connected to the urethra. You also see here the testes, the epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, eventually being connected with the urethra as well. So the urethra is both passageway for urine and the sperm cell or the semen. Now, can you write in the chat box right now, what do you think is the problem or possible problem with that? The possible problem that the urine and the sperm cells, the semen, will be going through the same passageway which we call as the urethra. What do you think would be the possible, and actually the actual problem with being the same passageway? Ayan. Okay, sabi ni Amir, possible infection, that is right. Kaya may tinatawag tayo na yung UTI, urinary tract infection, and that's actually true. Although females will have a higher probability of having the UTI, urinary tract infection, compared with the male, because the male's urethra is actually longer, kaya lesser ang possibility. The female's urethra is shorter, kaya ang masabi natin dyan that there's a higher probability of urinary tract infection. Kaya we'll talk about that later in the female reproductive system. Okay? So that's one possible infection. But there's another one. There's another one here. What do you think will happen to the sperm cell if the urine would be present there or traces of the urine would be present? Masisira yung mga cells na nasa sperm cell. Okay, that's right. Yung sperm cell itself will be, masisira siya. It will actually be non-viable. It will die because the pH of urine is actually high or low. It is low pH, mababa siya, and it will cause the sperm cells to die actually. So that's why there is a need, as I mentioned a while ago, to cleanse, to remove, to neutralize the low pH of the urine. Okay, so that's what we call that's what the information about the urinary bladder and the urethra. So it conveys urine and also conveys semen as well, or it's the passageway. So again, what if there will be a problem with the passageway? There are blockages. So number one, magkakaroon ng problem in urinating. There will be urinary tract infection, or there will be problems in expelling out the urine. Secondly, since there will be blockages or problems, then the sperm cells will also not be able to go out. The male will become infertile, and then there will be it will be impossible to effect a pregnancy in the female reproductive tract. Okay, so that will be the thing about the urinary bladder. Okay, can I see a heart reaction? Can I intindihan natin yung part na yan? Ayan. Okay, very good. Let's finish up with this. Okay, so let's try to go to remember this. So again, this is the testis, this is the scrotum. The structure immediately on top of the testis is the epididymis, and then the structure right after the epididymis, the very long structure here, vast structure, is the vas deferens. You have here this portion, the ejaculatory duct. It will be receiving from all these glands. You have this structure as the urinary bladder, and of course, you're very familiar, this is the urethra, and of course, the opening here is the urethral opening. All right, so let's now go to the third chunk. So you now already know the testis, you now already know the passageway or ducts. How about the accessory glands? So just remember the semen, the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, so let me just correct that later on, and the bulbourethral gland or the Cowper's gland. Okay, so say natin. Now this is the posterior view of the male urinary bladder. In other words, this is the back portion, nakatalikod sa atin. And if we're gonna cut away the male, you will see the bladder over there at the back portion. Right behind the urinary bladder, you will find here leaf-like structures which we call as the seminal vesicle. Ngayon, remember, may fluids na pinoproduce ngayon yung mga accessory glands. You have to remember this one. It secretes what color? What color? Yellowish, thick fluid. What function? It protects and nourishes the sperm. How much? 60% of the total volume of the semen. So those are three important things you have to remember about the seminal vesicle. And the fourth one would be the position. The position is right at the very back of the bladder. Next naman would be the color. It's yellowish. What's the function? Number 3, nourishes the sperm and protects. How much? 60% of the total volume. Okay, so that's very easy to remember for our LT1. Okay, can I say a thumbs up kung nakita natin yung important facts related with the seminal vesicle? Let me just repeat where it is found, right at the very back of the urinary bladder. What's the color? Yellow. What's the function? Protects and nourishes the sperm cells. How much? 60% of the whole fluid or the semen. Okay, so that's the important information. Right after seminal vesicle, another accessory gland is the prostate gland. So if the seminal vesicle is right behind the bladder, the prostate gland will be right below the bladder. Ano naman trabaho nito? The trabaho naman yan, kanina, ang seminal vesicle is yellow, the prostate gland produces a milky alkaline fluid. Okay, so that's the color, information number 1, milky alkaline fluid. What's the function? Number 2, again, it nourishes and protects the sperm as well. Okay, so that will be the important thing. Another function would be it squeezes out this fluid during ejaculation, or during when the sperm cells need to go out of the male reproductive system. So again, what's the prostate gland? What's the color? It produces milky alkaline fluid. What's the function? Nourishes and protects the sperm. What would be the other function? It squeezes out the fluid during ejaculation. Okay, so you can find that at the very bottom. Now, just an additional information. Okay, can I see a thumbs reaction from all the males here in our class? Lahat ng mga lalaki, pakitaas ang thumbs up natin. Okay, I'm talking to you, males, kasi you have to take note when you are 60 years old. So, medyo bata pa kayo, ano? Later, pag naging 60 years old na kayo, you have to go to the doctor and have the prostate gland checked. Because one of the major problems of males is that the prostate gland can inflame and later can go cancerous. Yan tinatawag natin na prostate gland. So many males might succumb to prostate gland or prostate cancer. That's why at the age of around 60, the males need to be checked. Okay, so naintindihan natin yung part na yan. Can I say a thumbs up if everybody are able to understand? Alright, so we're done with the prostate gland. Bulbourethral gland. So again, the seminal vesicle is right behind the bladder. The prostate gland is right below the bladder. And immediately below the prostate gland, you have there the bulbourethral gland, or another term is Cowper's gland. Ano naman siya? Nagsisecrete din ng liquid. Kung ang seminal vesicle is yellowish, tapos ang prostate gland is milkish or milky secretions, ang bulbourethral gland, clear mucus ang kanyang nire-release. And ano ang kanyang trabaho? It neutralizes the acidic urine remaining in the urethra. And that will actually protect the sperm cells because the pH the urine that is low in pH will not be able to kill the sperm cells anymore because it has been neutralized. So hindi na siya acidic, neutral na ang kanyang pH because of the presence of bulbourethral gland. Okay, can I see a thumbs up again? Kung naintindihan natin yung portion na yan. Okay, so very good. So we're done with the third. So very easy na, no? So again, natapos na natin yung seminal vesicle. Natapos na natin yung semen. That would be the fluids all together with the sperm cell. Take note, sperm cell is not the semen. The sperm cell is inside the semen, which would be the fluid. And where does the fluid comes from? Seminal vesicle, making it yellowish, milkish color coming from the prostate gland, and the clear mucus coming from the bulbourethral gland. So sama-sama na yan to produce a semen. Okay? So that will be the function of the bulbourethral gland. It is for neutralization of the urine. Okay, so let's go to this one. So you know the scrotum already. You know the testis already here. You know the epididymis, which is right on top of the testis. You have the vas deferens looping around the urinary bladder. You have the seminal vesicle here. Ay, ito pala, no? Okay, this one is the seminal vesicle. Okay, what do you call this one? Right under the bladder, of course, you know, it's the prostate gland. And right under the prostate gland, you have the Cowper's gland. Okay. Can I see a thumbs reaction kung unti-unti na natin na memorize ang male reproductive system? Okay, so actually, it's quite easy if you will be chunking the information, and that will help you to remember that in the examination. Oh, by the way, before I forget, what will happen if this will all be malfunctional? Of course, if the seminal vesicle will be malfunctional, 60% of the volume semen will not occur. At the same time, the sperm cell will not be nourished much. So it will become impoverished, will become it will not be able to develop well because nourishment will not be sufficient. Now, if the prostate gland is problematic, it is not able to secrete the milky alkaline fluid, then it will not be able also to nourish and protect the sperm cell. So kukulangin ng nourishment, then the sperm cell will not be mature enough to effect a pregnancy. There will be several problems. And of course, if the bulbourethral gland will be malfunctional, then the urine will not be neutralized. The sperm cell will still die because of the remaining urine. Okay, so just remember all of those stuff related with the third one. Okay, let me just finish up na lamang with, so we're done with semen, seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and bulbourethral gland. Let me just finish up with the penis, which is the glands, the prepuce, and the spongy erectile tissue. Starting first with the spongy erectile tissue, there will be two columns of tissue here, and the reason it is called spongy because there will be a lot of holes. It looks like a sponge, and I think you're very familiar with sponge. Pagka naguhugas kayo ng plato, diba? When you put it under the tap and then it will absorb a lot of the water, it will become heavy. So that's actually the idea that is happening here. What happens is that the spongy erectile tissue, when the male is aroused and will be ready for sexual reproduction, what will happen is the blood will flow through the spongy erectile tissue, affecting what we call as the erection. So that's that. During sexual arousal, the erectile tissue fills with blood from the arteries, causing what we call as the erection, and this will enable the male to bring about or to carry the sperm cells inside of the female reproductive tract. So that's the spongy erectile tissue. Okay, so that's what the erection would look like. And then let me just mention, what if there will be problems with the spongy erectile tissue? And actually, there will be a number of males that would have problems having an erection. Erectile dysfunction ang tawag doon. So this would be a problem because no sexual reproduction can happen and there will be no deposition of the sperm cells, no pregnancy can happen as well. So that's why males who have erectile dysfunction needs to go to the doctor in order to find solutions. Sometimes stress. There's actually researches that have shown stress is a factor that can cause erectile dysfunction. Other problems naman, probably nagkaroon ng accident hitting the head, and actually parts of the brain is very important for sexual reproduction as well, at least for the arousal and the movement of certain muscles in the reproductive system. So even accident can cause erectile dysfunction. So that's why these people or these males, a portion of the males need to go to the doctor in order to answer this problem. Can I say a thumbs up if you're able to understand that? Yeah, okay, last na lamang, and I'll end with a few more. The glands would be the head of the penis. It will be containing first of all, there will be a skin covering that's called the prepuce. And then it will be covered also with, it's richly supplied with nerve endings. And this will be helping in the arousal of the male. So that's the head of the penis, and this will be richly covered with nerve endings. And finally, you have the prepuce. This will be the skin, foreskin, and this will be surrounding in order to protect the prepuce. Okay, what do you call again the process of removing the foreskin or the prepuce? It starts with letter C. You call that as Anong tawag ulit sa process na yan? This would be, as mentioned before, this would be for Filipino boys, this would be the rite of passage. Okay, that's right, it's called circumcision. So there will be some cultures where circumcision is being done. The Jewish culture, American culture, most of the males will have circumcision. But there will be some cultures that do not undergo circumcision. It's not part of their mindset or not part of the culture, their culture. So that would be related with the foreskin. So it's again related with protection, and it is also related with arousal as well. Kasi marami din siyang what they call that nerve endings as well. So why is circumcision being done? For one reason, it's ritual, it is religious. The other reason would be it will be medical, because some scientists will be saying that it is very hygienic to remove the foreskin to the prepuce. Okay, so that ends my discussion right now.